Next on the podcast, we have Donnie Wharton. It's actually Hunter's dad, and we're excited to have him on. I mean, this guy's got such a long list of things that he's done in his life, and we're excited to bring him to the audience and let him share his story and how he got to the point he is today. So without further ado, Donnie, go ahead and let us know a little bit about yourself.
Well, first off, I'm not clapping for me. I'm clapping for you guys. Congratulations. Honored to be here. This is exciting. I think you two have a lot to share and a lot to say. So with that, this is pretty exciting. But no, thank you for that introduction. I've not just as a Brawley resident, but I can't believe how time flies. It seems like not very long ago. I was Hunter's age when I actually first moved here, and really thought it might just be a temporary stop, maybe a year or so for Susie and I. Of course, my wife, my beautiful wife, thought we would just spend a little time here, close to her family, as we were just starting ours. And at that point, I had visions of being elsewhere. I didn't know exactly where, but you're kind of at that age where you don't know where life's exactly taking you. So it's been quite a ride, and hopefully I'll be able to share some of the interesting highlights.
Yeah, no, we're excited about that. Obviously to end up here, 125, to end up here at that age and not having come from this area, it's a unique place to end up in your 20s when you're used to a larger city setting. And I can only imagine what your mind was going through when you decided this was going to be a little stop for you guys along that path, and obviously to have planted yourself here for many years after that. But let's go back to take it back to the early days. Where were you born and raised?
Yeah, I was blow people away with this a little bit. I wasn't born, as a matter of fact, just about as far away from Brawley that you can get. Born in the state of Massachusetts, specifically Lowell. And Lowell, Massachusetts is, well-known, kind of a suburban town. It's got probably a stressed little town. I know very little about it because other than my birth certificate saying that I'm from there, I think my parents spent a total of 2 weeks there post-birth. Wow. And they immediately moved up to up in the Maine area, Bangor, Maine. So that is literally about as far as you can get.
You couldn't get much different from Brawley, California than Lowell, Massachusetts. The only thing I know about Lowell is they have a Red Sox affiliate, the Lowell Spinners there.
There you go. See, you got some information there.
That's all I got for you.
Well, and then there was Mark Wahlberg, I think, did a movie of a boxer and a fighter that was from there.
Okay.
Actually from that town. It's kind of the town, and I feel bad that I don't know the name, but interesting. So moved there, moved up to Maine. Still don't remember that because that was about a 2-year stop. And then, and the reason for the movement is my dad at the time was working his way into professional aviation, and professional aviation, unless you came from the military, if you're going in trying to make a career out of it strictly as a kind of a regular guy or a civilian, it takes a lot of money, takes a lot of time, and it's mainly because you got to build a lot of experience. So that's kind of explains a little bit of the movement early in his career in the time I was born. So we went from Massachusetts to Maine until we finally landed in Cleveland, Ohio.
Wow.
And that's for my younger brother, and I only have one sibling. So my younger brother was born there, Dana. Now I start to have some recollection of that because now I'm about 2.5. And so I do remember Cleveland. I just remember snow, and I remember making snowmen, and I remember a few, kind of those little kind of things that you remember, like your first Christmas and all that. But and then it wasn't very long after that we made our way out to California. So we moved to Northern California, which is really where I spent my elementary school years. And that's where I can truly say I was introduced to the NFL and was indoctrinated into Raider Nation.
So that's how this happened. I got you. That's how this happened.
Yeah, I'm going to bring all the pieces together here for the family.
There we go.
So Dad's career really, no pun intended here, but took off, and started flying the big heavy jets, DC 8s, DC 9s, but he wasn't flying passengers. He was flying cargo. But again, building that kind of time and having that experience was really, really a big deal. And it was a big deal for our family. So we grew up in that area, just in the suburbs of Sacramento, and became season ticket holders and started going to Raider games in Oakland at that time, which was certainly something I distinctly remember about life up there. And then in the late 70s, we moved to Southern California, which is really, it's weird. Everything I just described, that all happened in the first 10 years of my life.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It has a little bit of movement, kind of like being in the military, I would
Yeah.
assume. And and then basically from there, the rest of my sort of growing up and formative years through high school on into college, and all the different experiences I had took place in San Dimas. So that's kind of a little bit of the, so San Dimas, made famous by Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure
Yeah.
movie, kind of my era, but I
Sure.
think there was a remake. I don't know if it did very well.
It
Uh,
transcends,
yeah.
we're
So yeah, it's kind of funny, but and I always say, I met someone special. I knew she was the one. She was from this town called Brawley. Never heard of it prior to meeting her. And there's a very funny story around that, and maybe I'll share a little bit later, because I'll give a little teaser. Uh, I was married before I met my father-in-law, which is not the order of things. So talk about that a little bit later.
No, very good. So you were there, you moved there when you were 10, you said, right? Or 10 or 11?
At fifth grade, I was 10 years old. Yep.
So fifth grade. So you're, yeah, and at that time, you moved there, and it was for flying for your dad's career.
That's right. That's right. Matter of fact, I'd almost be remiss if I don't share, because it's kind of interesting, a little bit of my family history. I mentioned my dad being in aviation, but prior to that, he was really not raised and educated in the field of aviation. It wasn't actually something he chose until much later in life. So my mother and father met in the Chicago area. Both were basically going to college in Chicago. But to be specific, because a lot of people, oh, what school, and it's my father was actually in the seminary. So he was raised in through parochial school, and in pretty strong, obviously strong Catholic upbringing.
Mhm.
And he was raised by my great grandparents on the Wharton side in Indiana. So was really raised as an only child, and entered the seminary. Was an
Wow.
extremely well educated man. It was pretty interesting. He through the seminary, he majored in philosophy, majored in theology, of course.
Mhm.
Learned to read, write in Latin. And with a Latin base like that, he actually ended up, was very competent in speaking, I think about 7 languages,
Yeah.
including he learned to write in Hebrew, and then even later learned the Japanese language. He had a fascination with the Japanese language, and actually could read and write in Japanese. So I mentioned all the other languages. So he was
Jeez.
pretty brilliant dude.
That's impressive. Yeah.
I remember thinking that growing up too. How always remember thinking my dad was a very smart, yet when I fast forward and take you to the Raider games, just really a uniquely awesome guy. From the standpoint that after all that, he could he can tear it up with the best of them at a Raider game. But backing up, this is like a Raider theme, right?
Exactly. Well,
Am
yeah, I
I
mean, you got the guys that are lawyers that go to the games and still dress up and all that stuff like that. So no, that is, I obviously I didn't know those things about him. That's super impressive.
so he ended up meeting my mother there, who was going to an all-girls Catholic college called Mundelein College, and anybody that's from that area will know that school in Mundelein. And obviously both graduated, but they met there because she was a foreign exchange student. My mom was born and raised in Japan, so I always say, including living here in Imperial County, that I'm from an immigrant family. My mom was from a different country. She was became an alien resident, and entered in really at the end of the day by marriage. After college, she ended up traveling the world as a Catholic missionary. So my mother's been to Africa, South Africa, Brazil, Amazon. She was in Canada. It's just amazing how much they traveled around the world. And
This was when they were married.
this was before. So this
Okay.
is post grad. So my dad, and thank you for the question. I'm kind of hopping around, but they both graduated. My dad ended up ordained, and then he was sent to Japan, where he became his ministry, or his pastoring in Japan Catholic Church, and basically saying mass in Latin and Japanese, which is pretty incredible. All the while he was corresponding with my mother, who was traveling the world as like I said, as a missionary. And so I think it was this interesting, there's probably, I guarantee there's more in the story than I'll ever know. And but I think it was like a 10-year pen pal kind of thing, until the day came. My father did make a decision to leave the church. And my mom always told me it was always about his passion for aviation. He started flying as a hobby, and there's
Sure.
articles of it. I have clippings of it. My dad being a flying priest, in his 20s. And he was also into whitewater rafting. He was like an adventure guy.
Huh. I can only imagine where you got
Yeah.
this from then.
And
Wow.
he was in this stuff, but just there's some paradox there, when you kind of think about sort of the path he was going, yet the desires, maybe that he had. But my opinion is, I think it's ultimately love, in marriage,
Sure.
that perhaps, but they've never told me. Um,
Yeah.
and so when they came together, it was very unlikely, is my point. And it was much later in life, in their 30s. Matter of fact, when I was born, and my brother was born, my mom was 38 and 40 respectively. So she had
Yeah, a little older, yeah.
she had children later in life. And you really think about it, at least statistically, I shouldn't have been here. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely.
so no, that was their life. So fast forward back to the moving around. When they started together, they really started with nothing, and really a dream and a desire, and a lot of scraping by and taking the best job you can get, working your way up. And my mom always there to support, always working, and literally, like the old stories go about, walking barefoot in the snow type of thing. They lived in the coal country. So my mom literally does tell me stories. They had one car between them. And my dad would have to use it for his, to get to his flying job, cargo job. So my mom literally walked to work, a part-time gig. I mean, the numbers were crazy, like to make an extra $100 a month, that kind of thing.
Jeez.
So, I cherish those stories, probably more now. And, I'm sure it had a profound effect, even though those weren't the things I was talking about when I was a teenager.
Yeah, yeah. Fair, fair.
But yeah, so that's kind of that's about all you can know about my childhood.
So obviously, I would assume that growing up in that, that family setting, that kind of sparked that early interest in the idea of wanting to be a pilot, or and following in a bit of the footsteps of maybe your dad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so weird about that is, and I think speaking to a couple of men myself, with you guys, that you never know how much influence your parents actually have on you until later in life.
Yeah.
I'm telling you this now in my 50s, I feel it even more now, of the influence that my mom and my dad had on me, versus when I was maybe in my mid 20s.
Yeah.
I recognize it as much, but yeah, absolutely. There is an interest in aviation that started pretty early, but you just not, I'm not going to tell you that I was driven by career, you know, like very early in life, but
Yeah.
I really began going down that road at a pretty early age in high school. So at age 16, for my birthday, my dad, mom and dad provided me 3 flight lessons. So, you know, not a carte blanche to go learn how to fly, nothing to get in your line, just 3 lessons. And I
Yeah.
think, you know, clearly looking back now, it was a way to see if I was interested, right?
Sure.
And so certainly I, you know, cashed in on that, did that. And I can say what was interesting is I thought it was fun, definitely thought it was fascinating, but you know, when you're 16, 17, anything like that kind of gets your adrenaline pumping. You know, you want to maybe check it out a little bit more. But I still wasn't thinking of it at all as a career, maybe more hobby. I was happy to have my driver's license, much less
Yeah.
working toward a pilot license, right? So you know that really began a journey that evolved in something I haven't shared yet. I was talking about my dad, but I did lose my dad not very many years after that. So he died when I was 19, and certainly that was kind of a juncture where I really, getting into aviation as a career meant a lot more to me at that point
Yeah.
than it did probably prior to that. So
So going obviously 16, take get the flight lessons for your birthday, and you're, I mean, at the time were you thinking about, going to college as you graduated from high school, or, what was your mindset? Where were you at that point in time, and what you thought you were going?
yeah, my parents had they laid out a pretty good roadmap, and one that I distinctly remember going, yeah, I think I'm going to follow that. It sounded exciting. So, um, so kind of to carry forward where the aviation was going, I thought I was kind of doing it as a hobby. Then it started to evolve. I knew I was going to go to college, didn't know where. So just like every kid, 16, 17, you start thinking about where you're going, where you're going to apply. Cal Poly Pomona is very nearby San Dimas, so
Mhm.
that really ended up kind of being my first choice. But the dream shot was I did have visions of wanting to go to the Air Force Academy,
Yeah.
um, purely again from an aviation perspective. But
Sure.
I realized pretty quickly I was already behind the 8 ball in terms of getting the information, getting things like nominations. My parents weren't really that involved in my, kind of college selection process.
Yeah.
Um, so I was kind of on my own a little bit. So a lot of it was just, frankly, was, ignorance, I guess. I just didn't know what to do, but the path that my dad laid and my dad was an airline captain at that point. So his peers, he had a lot of either current reserve military pilots that he flew with, his colleagues, as well as former or retired, right, from the military pilots.
Mhm.
So the idea came up of myself upon graduation of joining the Air Force Reserve, which is not full time, right? You basically go to boot camp just like everyone else. You go to the training technical school, whatever your job's going to be, just like everybody else. But when you're done with all that, you come back to your reserve unit and you start serving 1 weekend a month and then 2 weeks, in the summer. So
Yeah.
the idea is you can go to school, right, while you're doing that. So the plan was to do that, graduate, become an officer, and then actually fly for that reserve unit. It's a little known program. A lot of people don't know that you can do that. You don't have to actually join the Air Force and be a full-time pilot. You can actually, there are pathways of being a reserve or a National Guard pilot. So that was sort of the path laid out, and it kind of got derailed, I would say, a little bit when my dad passed away.
Got you. Um, wow, man, that's a lot. And you're 19 years old right there. So so at 19, when your father passed away, were you at Pomona?
I was at Pomona. I was actually going to 2 schools. I was going also to the JC that's next to it,
Mm.
um, Mount San Antonio College, Mount SAC.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
guys are familiar, probably.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
It's about every JC. Actually had a
Yeah.
pretty good football program for a lot of years. I think a national track team, pretty, very
Yeah.
competitive track. But I went to Mount Sac because they had a comprehensive aviation program. And it was actually a 2-year degree program, but, aeronautical science, commercial flight, that type of thing. So I was doing those classes there because they were not offered at Cal Poly, and at the same time carrying a full load at Cal Poly Pomona. So it's pretty
Wow.
insane. I distinctly remember carrying something close to 24 units at one time
Jeez.
between a semester and a quarter. I was crushing myself.
Yeah.
So that wasn't sustainable. And by the way, I was flying. And then I became a commercial pilot, a flight instructor around the same time. So but post, my dad's passing away, that following year, all these things were occurring. And basically by the time I was 20, I was, flight instructing, but I had withdrawn from Cal Poly Pomona, finished the program at Mount Sac, and really, frankly, my career really started taking off in aviation at a pretty early age, from basically about 20.
So let me take it back there for real quick on that. As all
Yeah,
the questions. So you're you got your pilot's license. It's all between that time. So you got those 3 lessons at 16.
yeah,
In the next 3-4 years, you got your pilot's license. You became a commercial pilot. You were a flight instructor as a 20-year-old kid.
yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that's so
And I was in the military. I was a reserve. I was Air Force
yeah.
Reserve. Yeah, so I went. Yeah, and again, I'm not doing a good job of putting all the pieces together because it's just so much that I was doing
Oh
at
no,
that.
it's yeah. I mean, you're doing a great job, but it's just there's like I said, there's just so many things, and it's like that timeline is like, and I'm sure, like you're saying, you're talking 24 units in a quarter semester time frame. Yeah, your timeline was really compact at that time. There was a lot going on in those little
Yeah,
windows.
yeah.
Uh, that is so when your father passed away, did that kind of really catapult you into saying the career side of things, moving into that?
It did. It did. And you would think it would have catapulted me to stay on the path that was laid. And I really didn't. I ended up, if you kind of take all those things I was taking on at the time, and by the time I was 20, like I said, I wasn't going to Cal Poly anymore, right? Just,
Yeah.
so I really wasn't on the 4-year track. I finished the 2-year program, got an associate's. And then I ended up serving out my time in the Air Force, 4+ years, 4.5 years. And that was it. I got out. And so really what was ahead of me and what I was doing at the time was a lot of flying. I was
Yeah.
doing a lot of instructing. Then I got into a little bit of charter flying, a little part-time corporate aviation, really looking for it's going to sound familiar, but any opportunity I could to build time and experience. But one of the highlights I remember being, gosh, I mean, maybe I was 21 and I was flying as co-pilot in a Citation jet, a private jet, basically flying for a family and a corporation. I had a good buddy that was the captain, that was the left seat guy. But they basically needed someone that can fog a mirror with a pilot license to sit in the the right seat. But it was a great gig. I flew all over the Western U.S., flew all over, Mexico, going on great golf trips and going on hunting trips. I remember one weekend, the owners threw my buddy the key. So as long as we flew the family members up to their hunting ranch in Klamath, Oregon, we could take the
Hey,
jet from
the
there and
spot.
go wherever we wanted. So he filled the jet full. We were picking up his friends, like one in Reno, one in, I don't know, I think the Bay Area. Some were already with us. And then we took it up to Bozeman because he went to Montana State. And we
Mm,
went up there for the big Grizz Bobcat game, like 30 years ago. I remember,
wow.
whatever, 31, 30, yeah, 32 years ago, whatever the heck it was. And freezing. It's the first time I've seen it. It was like frozen tundra.
You're
Um,
talking like November or something like that, and it's
November and rivalry weekend. Yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah,
late NCAA football. They were probably, I don't know, D2 then. I don't know. I'm guessing whatever
yeah,
back
possibly.
then. Yeah, or whatever it was back in, back in those days in the 80s. But what an epic experience, at that age,
Yeah,
building.
21 years old. Yeah, kind of running around, seeing part of the world on in a very luxurious way. That's not too bad. It's not too bad at the time. Uh,
Where would what was the thing that you and Uncle Dana did in LA, like the entrepreneurial thing where you were holding events, remember? So how far after this would that be?
It was right after I did all this first. So yeah, actually that's pretty good. That's pretty sharp, Hunter. That came right after, actually. But sometimes I shouldn't say rather not talk, because you know what? It's how I met your mother. I mean, really, when it comes down to it.
And you met her through Aunt Casey, right? Because you're working with her.
I met her through Aunt Casey. And for those that do not know my wife's family, my in-laws, very well-known family in the city, the town of Brawley, and actually a pioneering family in Brawley. I think it was her great grandfather moved here in about 1908, I think, or soon thereafter. It was pretty close.
mhm.
I may be getting that wrong. I know my father-in-law Lou he's gonna get me on that one, because I've asked so many times. But right around there, and actually the city of Brawley incorporated in 1908, so I know that. So that's probably why it sticks in my head. But but again, my wife, she has 4 other sisters, so it's kind of hard to miss a family with 5 girls, in a town like Brawley. So.
Mhm.
But yeah, the eldest sister, Casey, always going to be near and dear for me. That's who I met many, many years ago. So it was right after this time. I was pretty young, obviously. And Casey was very prominent in a business that's, I'll call it, most people know what multi-level marketing is, or direct marketing, but,
Mhm.
the type of business that sells its products, like Avon, like Herbalife, like Amway, like, and go down the list, right? There's literally thousands of businesses. So I got involved. Before that, my younger brother actually got involved in that business, and Casey was very well known, very successful. And so my brother was like in her group, was kind of part of that group. And he was always trying to get me in the business, thinking that I was maybe pretty good at, things like sales. Like one of the things I left out when I was 16 years old, my part-time job. So this is when I'm going to high school. So yeah, I started flying a little bit, but remember, I still, I like to earn my own money. I had 2 jobs that really formed maybe some of the not so good things in my life, where I was exposed to some things that my parents would rather I'm not. But I worked at a liquor store from 14 to 16 as a box boy, and I'll say I learned a lot about life working at a liquor store, and we're talking about like an 8-hour a week gig, couple hours a night to come in and mop, stock the shelves, that kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And then after that, I got a job selling gym memberships at age 16. So I was working at a not like a fitness, the equivalent of a 24-hour fitness, but not that big. And that was interesting, but I really learned at that time at 16 that I was kind of I was willing to hustle, I was willing to talk to people, really
Exactly.
I'll never forget. I went to an all boys Catholic high school, Damien High School. I remember taking my promo for gym memberships, and I remember it was a big deal to buy a custom stamp, one of those rubber stamps that you had to pop it on the ink and hit it on the little half sheet flyer.
I know what that is, at least.
Yeah, ask for Don. Ask for Don. Hey, I'm considering the audience here. Right?
I know what it is, so I'm good. Yeah.
So I got like 500 of those, and a buddy of mine went, and we were shoving them in every locker room at my high school. Not locker room, locker that are spread out throughout the high school, right? By the first morning break, there is litter everywhere at high school with my name, Ask for Don.
You set yourself up.
Do you think I asked for permission? No. Do you think there was any clearance with administration? No.
Oh, not a chance, man.
I was,
You can't get clearance for hustle. Yeah, you can't ask anyone for for clearance on that. Yeah, so obviously those things those aren't surprising to me about you. You know, I mean, I think anyone who has that just entrepreneurial spirit that grows, I feel like that's just something you grow up doing. I remember hustling kids for football cards and baseball cards when I was 9 years old, knowing like, oh, they don't know who this is, man. Hey, I'll trade you, just some defensive lineman. Here's a Dennis Bird, card. I'll trade you that for, your Joe Montana rookie. And they're like, yeah, sure, here you go. Those kind of things. So yeah, just it's just obvious, when that's just in your personality to be that kind of type of person.
I think, I appreciate you saying that, but it links to what Hunter was just asking when I met Casey in this business. My brother, because of having that knowledge, said, hey, I think my brother would be really good at this, because he sold a lot of gym memberships, and so I end up going to one of those meetings where they meet and, kind of hype you up and all that.
Yeah.
And, I got to be honest with you, I was just looking around at that time. I'm 21, 22 years old and looking around going, man, these chicks are hot, and I go, everyone looks like wearing nice clothes, nice suit, look like they're making some pretty good bank. All right, I'm in. What are we doing?
Yeah.
I didn't know what the hell we're doing, and is this rated G or whatever, but
I told my wife that it would close the door because I'm gonna be cussing, but I think we're gonna be pretty open. I mean,
this is I'm not Rogan, but I shit you not when I tell you that within a year and a half, my brother and I built a business with about 4,000 people in it. And we became kind of prominent actually in a short period of time in that business. And in that parallel track there, my brother starts dating Casey, my oldest sister-in-law's personal assistant. And that's sort of where the banter started going back and forth about, the possibility of Susie and I, being at that time, maybe dating or whatever.
Yeah.
But you bought yourself a Mercedes, right?
Oh yeah. It was used, but I had a 300E. It was ridiculous. I'm going to tell you right now. I want this for the audience. Don't do everything that I'm talking about. It doesn't mean it was the right thing. And some of that has to do with, I mentioned, my dad passed, there was some inheritance there. There was, I look back like anybody and there were some stupid things, I did, not, at least they weren't illegal stupid, but
sure. Not the best decision, but they seemed really good at the time.
That's exactly what the kind of decision a 21-year-old would make.
Exactly. So, you had a little freedom and you were you're just kind of running with it a little bit.
It's kind of funny with my son listening, but as I would tell him that you tend to, as a parent, try to bestow upon your children the wisdom to not make the same mistakes,
Sure.
And it's funny how that's never going to go perfectly, because some of that has to repeat itself. Look, we're humans, right? That's how we learn. We have to go, I can tell you that pan is hot, but you're still going to touch it, right?
Eventually you got to put your hand on it to figure it out. That's right.
And then you're going to figure it out. So, but you know what? There's a sort of a deeper, kind of meaning here, I think, in and of, had I not gone in and said yes to that opportunity, had I not got into that rah session and dive deep into that business, I'd have never met my wife, and I'd have never had the incredible kids that I had and the incredible life that I'm living right now. So I you know what? Don't ever doubt a moment in time where you don't have all the answers, but you're saying yes to something just because at the moment, you know what? It seems like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So that's a quick fast forward, but so yeah, that really kind of links well to meeting Susie. We had a very whirlwind courtship. That's a story in and of itself, because that's back to, I didn't meet my father-in-law when he was already my father-in-law. And I don't know if you want to hear about that, but anyways, next question.
we might have to. Yeah. Go ahead. Do you want to get this?
Well, how long after meeting her did you guys get married again?
4.5 months.
4.5 months.
I'll be taking notes right now, bro.
You don't want to make anybody nervous.
Yeah. Well, you can cast that one out there. So 4.5 months. So you're what, 20, 21?
I am 23 actually by this time. So
23?
remember, about a year and a half, couple years in that business.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
Yeah, and then and all the while I'm still doing some aviation, but not
Still
as much.
flying.
Yeah,
Okay.
but not as much. I kind of built up a lot of experience in that, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 flying. And then call it a little bit of a hiatus when I got involved in this business. And we were marketing, nutritionals, water filters, in case anyone's wondering, what are you talking about?
So this is this like selling membership kind of a thing, or like kind of like getting people to was this
get people to sign up, and then they buy a bunch of product so they can turn around and sell it. But then
pyramid scheme?
Pyramid scheme. It's called multi-level marketing. Still around.
That type of thing though. Okay, got you.
Type of thing. And we had 4,000. Yeah, with that business, I traveled all over the country. But my brother and I had offices in Utah, in Southern California, and it was. You know what? To this day, that's where I learned how to speak in public.
Yeah.
That's how I learned how, I learned about rejection. I also learned about how, really what, how to kind of influence positively, not, influence, like manipulate. And just learned a lot about, interpersonal communication, as well as, kind of just what makes different people tick. But more so, when you're learning about other people, you learn about yourself, right?
Sure.
So I would say it had a lot to do with kind of forging your kind of leadership journey. But yeah, the story behind it is it was completely unplanned. It was a Friday night. We're with a couple of friends. We're at my favorite sushi restaurant, which became Susie's favorite sushi restaurant at the time. And we had a little too much to drink. And the owner, our server / owner, it's a very small, as a couple. We came up with the wild idea. I think we should get married, and then how that becomes kind of the talk at the table, and then before you know it,
everyone encouraging it.
Yeah, and then it became like a dare, and then a double dare, and then I'm not kidding. It was like just it was like a freight train that started moving down the road. Down the rails, and you couldn't stop it. That was it. It was like
so you're having dinner in Los Angeles.
It's by San Dimas, and actually Covina, the city right next to San Dimas. Yeah.
So they're having dinner, and everyone just you start talking about, let's go get married. Now
that's it. And so here was the plan. The original plan, I was to fly. So I had an airplane at that time, available to me. So I was going to fly Susie and I for like kind of just a weekend getaway, because she had never been to Catalina Island. So I was going to fly to Catalina Island, spend the weekend there. And instead, through this kind of sushi drunk talk on a Friday night, it turned into, well, screw it. Let's fly to Vegas and go get married. I'm not kidding. That's what the conversation was. So normal people would wake up in the morning and go, what the hell? That was great. All right, let's go to Catalina. No, we stayed focused on the Friday, that which was the trip. We flew to Vegas, and we got married that night.
Wow. Wait,
Saturday
the night you're at dinner, you flew to Vegas that night.
No, the next morning. No.
Okay. All right. So you kept that energy going through the next morning and said, we're still on with this. Let's get in that plane, and we're heading to Vegas.
You flew her?
I flew her myself. I was the pilot.
That part.
Yeah.
You learn something new every day, man. Look at that. Wow. So
23 years old.
My goodness. Look at that.
I'll be 26 over here.
Nah, you're so young, bro. Yeah, see, I'm old too. I got married when I was 24, so
That's true.
You guys are way ahead. Believe me, you're way ahead. I had a lot of lessons to learn, kind of through life. But yeah, and yeah, that was it. And then we came back to San Dimas, and you guys, I'll tell you, I really didn't myself have a whole lot going. I had all these things going that I'm telling you, but none of it was anchored in a sort of a set career path at that point, right?
yeah,
I kind of backed away from aviation. I'm involved in this business, so naturally, you would think we keep going that path. But it was interesting because getting married and realizing the importance of that, the commitment around that, and then subsequent, I think we one thing that we no question had in common from day one is both of us really wanted to start a family. And some people are that way. Some people aren't.
yeah,
I get it. I was. And I think a lot
yeah,
of it had to do with losing my father at that, just a few years more. It just, to me, to get in that position was, something that I really wanted, to me, that would charge every aspect of my life. And fortunately for me, Susie and I, we were very aligned on that, sort of goal, and so that happened soon thereafter. Within a year, I was a dad,
yeah.
and I was still 24, just turning 25 when
And you're still in San Dimas.
when Donald was
Right.
born, and we technically moved a few towns to the east, so we were in an apartment. So lived in kind of the upland Rancho Cucamonga area, so still basically the same area, right?
Yeah.
And that's when Donald was born, and and then the business that we were in that I've been describing to you, there was a lot of nights, a lot of weekends. I mean, it's you guys, hustle is hustle. You got to work all the time. And I think, at a pretty early juncture of the family starting, when Donald was born, it became pretty apparent to Susie that, part of her felt like she needed to get grounded and kind of, connected to loved ones and family beyond a guy
Just
that she, that we've been married a year, right?
yeah.
Basically, and I wasn't around much. So, and that was bothersome to me. So, there was a decision made just to, kind of throw caution to the wind and move to the valley. And we
Kind of pressuring you to do that, or
no, so
mentioning
and
it ever? Yeah.
no, she didn't. She just said she was going to go down and visit her mom, and she didn't come back. So I didn't,
That was pretty simple. help push the decision along a little quicker than you were anticipating on that.
and I go, huh? It took me about a week, and I go, and then I told my brother, I go, you know what? I'm going to go down and visit Susie. I'll be right back. And I never came back.
so that's at 24.
24. I just turned 25 by that time. But yeah, Donald was born. I was 24, and then so he was born in August, right? Late August, almost September. We moved to the valley in December. So it was just a matter. So it was about this time of year. Yeah.
So you moved down here, and I mean, I assume you had been to the Imperial Valley.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't tell the meet my father-in-law part, but yeah, I'd only been to the valley really a handful of times, like a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
So the valley was still very new to me. But
so you're aware it was hot here. That's
yeah.
probably about all you knew about it.
So Susie and I got married in July, and then within a few weeks of that, so I came down here for the very first time in August. How's that?
Got you. Oh yeah.
The previous year. So I came down here in August to meet Lou, and a meeting I'll never forget. And you guys, I got to tell you, if you can ever love a person, a man, like I do, Lou, and look back fondly at that meeting, because remember, that could have been the last day of my life, could have killed me.
Yeah, fair.
And you know what? I think that would be justifiable homicide, right? Or he really did the exact opposite, and from that moment welcomed me in, right from the front door. As a matter of fact, he came out the door to kind of greet me, and it was almost too enthusiastic. You know what I mean? Kind of one of those like, whoa, I don't know. He had a nice cold Coors Light, handed it to me, welcomed me in the house, and I thought, oh, this is it, man. probably going to snap my neck.
He's gonna take me back to another room to show me his guns.
Yeah. And, it's funny. The joke always is we look back, I mentioned I've had other sister-in-laws and there were some other marriages and weddings, but without getting into any of those details, just weddings are expensive, right? If you have 5 daughters,
Oh boy,
Justin,
I got one, man. I got one.
you have daughters. You gotta save that money. You gotta save.
Yeah.
I didn't. This whole story kind of comes full circle. I think I was absolutely, at least at that time, his favorite because that wedding cost him exactly this much.
Yeah, you saved him a whole bunch of cash, man. You're number one. You're good to go. No one can beat you at that point in time.
What else can mic drop? That was it.
What else do you want to fix?
And then, knowing a little bit obviously about his background, Hunter's grandpa was also an Air Force fighter pilot. So being a pilot, being even in an Air Force reserves and all that, I think I had a lot of good goodwill to start off with. But
sure. And some easy conversation right there too to have with your new father-in-law.
Still have the same conversations, man, today.
Yeah,
that's it. So
that's a cool relationship to have, and obviously very unique. It could have gone a totally different way, and definitely something that obviously, it's obviously you're proud of, which is a very cool thing to have. So you're 25 years old. You're December. You moved down to the Imperial Valley. You're no longer working in the sales job, or what was your plan at that time?
So I was for one of the few times in my life I was unemployed, really. Kind of vacated. I literally walked away from kind of a going business, but again, it's kind of business that if you're not there and you're not doing it, it doesn't compensate you. So
yeah.
Talk about almost like a pure commission type thing. So no, I moved down, and sort of the loose plan was, hey, I'm going to look into this crop dusting thing. And being a pretty qualified pilot, I do want to say I knew nothing, absolutely nothing about agriculture, much less crop dusting, much less ag chemicals.
Yeah.
Much less how all that comes together in a bit, in a business. And so once again, my blind ignorance, or whatever, my hubris, or enthusiasm, had me charging forward. I had this vision that I'm going to come down and just become a crop duster. But that was an amazing journey in and of itself of becoming one. But it all did begin with an introduction by my father-in-law to an operation up in Calapat, the Pancratz family farm air service, one of the legacy ag aviation businesses, not just in Imperial County, but really well known almost around the country. So it was a real big deal to be able to go there and start a career at $5.50 an hour sweeping the floor.
So sweeping the floor at 25 years old, you got a newborn. You're and you're optimistic about moving forward as kind of getting into the plane. What at that point in time, what's that next little window look like?
It was so funny because it's almost a movie, because this is a big operation. So they have new aircraft as well as old aircraft, right? So after I kind of stuck around long enough, they really thought, they being the family, everybody there that worked there, they took one look at me and said, this guy's going to last. I'm sure there was money out there, right? I give it 1 month, I give it 1 week, I give it 1 month, I give it 6 months, whatever, right?
Sure.
And then when I kind of made it through, and this was kind of in the wintertime, okay? Yeah. So then, when they go, if he makes it the summer, certainly he's going to cook off in the summer and he's gone, right? We're going to make him load sulfur. We're going to make him do, I'm not kidding. I did every, pretty much a quote, dirty job or shitty job you can think of. And I have shared this, I'm sure, poor Hunter, 1,000 times with him, but, and Donald, I did every job, including the sweeping, including the cutting the sacks, including mixing, loading, flagging, whatever, 2 in the morning, midnight. I did it with a ton of enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even saying that because there was just the goal, but it was, I loved being outdoors. I love I really started realizing I like learning new things. I'm learning about agriculture. I literally went down to the library and would study books on pesticides. I'm not kidding. I would study books on, to prepare myself for the exam I would eventually have to take. But I really started looking at other books and really, trying to understand local agriculture. So, and then of course, there's nothing like going out and learning by doing, right? So
Yeah.
I did all that, but like I said, the funny movie part is the owner pointed at this airplane that hadn't moved in like 4 or 5 years, and that it was so rusted out as far as the brakes that you couldn't even push the aircraft. Wouldn't even the wheels wouldn't turn, right?
Yeah.
And cobwebs, dirt. Imagine something sitting outside for 5 years in up in Calapat, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this sun. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember soliciting help. He said, if you can fix that airplane and get it flying, we'll get you started the next season. And man, I mean, did you need to tell me anything
Challenge
else?
accepted.
Chad has done. No, as I'm telling you the story, I just remember it now. The first time me and a couple other guys were pushing it, kind of toward the wash rack to get it just kind of hosed down and cleaned up. And then eventually pushed into the hangar where it can kind of find its own little corner in the hangar. And I literally on and off duty would spend time doing everything I can on that aircraft with the help of, the staff mechanics. And, I learned that aircraft from the bottom up. I mean, we basically, and I have no idea what he was thinking in the background. Maybe it was just a ploy to make me go away. Right. But
yeah, sure.
Long story short, I was licensed, certified, and flying that aircraft the next season, and it really burst open my career in the ag business. And so I went from $5.50 an hour, and within 4 years, I was flying the entire fleet, including really the helicopter program. By the way, I flew helicopters. I got that as well when I was 19, 20. And so I was flying airplanes, helicopters, day and night. It felt like 365 days a year, and was really, really, really blessed. I mean, I just, as far as I'm concerned, I was going to do that the rest of my life at that point. So, then things kept changing.
Yeah. So at that point in time, I mean, obviously I'm sure that's still a very limited window. So what you're talking, this is
90, 93, 94, 95, 96,
got
all
you.
years there. Yeah, I was there about just about 5 years.
You were born in 95?
95.
95. So at some point in time, this handsome little devil is born, and you're still working in Calapat at that time?
Still working at Calapat. Yeah.
Still working in Calapat. So that's 995. So shortly after this, I mean, at some point in time, you start thinking maybe doing your own thing, or where's that next? What switched in you to kind of start moving forward and doing that next point in your life?
It was a few more years, actually. So I started a very good friend of mine, dear friend of mine, consider him a brother. Our whole story is pretty funny there too. But good buddy of mine from Brawley, he's now since moved away. We really just decided to start our own business in 98. So incorporated in 98, and we started that year. We started with one leased helicopter, but what started driving that way was I really ate, drank, and breathed the business. I really got to know the customer base, and not just got to know the customer. I grew the customer base at the business I was working for. And again, perfect, happy with that. But the but part is there's no doubt, the entrepreneurial spirit kicks in terms of what if I can, strike out on my own. And an interesting conversation was really the turning point. And that was this friend of mine that really, became what turned into a 10-year partnership, and really a lifetime friendship. Right.
Yeah.
he said something pretty compelling. He's 10 years older than me, right at the time. And you guys, I'll tell you, someone that has even 5 years on you, they have a little bit of perspective, right? 10 years
Sure.
more perspective, 20 years more. That's why you always listen to your grandparents and your parents. A
Yeah.
lot of wisdom. But he said, Donnie, if you keep working like this, you're really never going to quite have a relationship with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, if we start our own gig at the very least, even though that sounds crazy, counterintuitive, right? You work all the time,
Yeah.
but you can control the time. You decide
Sure.
when you want to work versus somebody else deciding when you work. Absolutely the best decision ever.
Yeah.
Because instead of Susie just being a lone stay-at-home parent, which was very beneficial to the kids at the time, it would be even better if the kids had, a mom and a dad. And
Yeah.
as I'll share with Hunter, when we started our business, Ag Flight, it's really what allowed me to become a coach. And Justin, I got to throw this at you that your mother had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
And getting my youth coaching career started, because she was really the other one, and that's another tie there. These
It's
are
funny.
very dear connective relationships that have profound impacts on your life.
Yeah.
It's part of the magic of living in Brawley, in my opinion. And I've lived other places, and anyone that's grown up here or lived here will tell you probably the same thing.
Yeah.
Very few places you can go where you can come back, and those life lessons and those people and those influencers in your life really make a big difference. So anyways, that's what started me into my own business.
No question. And that's what's so, unique about obviously this, us doing this interview. It's so funny because, you know, I've known you since I was a little kid, right?
That's right.
And then this guy right here working with us, and knowing him since he was a little kid, but then him being in that similar role that you're talking about with you and I'm assuming you're meaning John, right? And talking about like
Yeah. Sorry,
right
John Wagner. Shout out.
just the experience that he had, and the knowledge that he had of some things that he could bring to the table that maybe you weren't thinking of those things. And it's so unique. But yeah, this whole how it goes like full circle, man, because obviously I remember Ag Flight, and I remember you guys, and my mom, obviously my mom working there, and the whole thing is 98. I'm a I don't know, 7th or 8th grader, and so I'm still a fairly younger kid and stuff. So just very very unique experience. But the fact that this is coming to this point and having this conversation is so I get a little bit surreal on that we're sitting here having this conversation, but unique, man. So go ahead.
And John was 10 years older than you.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm 10 years older than him, so it's just it's funny. It's unique. You take those things and you think about like how you really definitely you look at someone who's been around a little bit longer, had a little more kind of where you can take something from that and really kind of put it into practice at a young age where you might save yourself some tough years or some heartache or some things that maybe you won't get back. And the fact that you did it, and like you said, so start your coaching career, you get a chance to coach your kids as they're growing up. So you start doing those things. And so you're growing a young business at the time, and kind of give us a little more detail how that progressed over the next few years.
It launched. No, it really did. It was amazing how it took off. I mean, we were fortunate. A lot of businesses struggle, right, when they start off. And, I was really surprised even at the time, and even looking back, John and I came together. We were a perfect complement. He had a lot of skills that, either I didn't have or didn't want to have. I had some skills that, again, same thing, maybe he didn't have or didn't want to have. But we also had a lot of overlap. We were both pilots. Yeah. He was a very skilled mechanic, fully licensed, everything. He can run a shop, ran a shop, was kind of a logistic operations guy. I'm more of a sales, customer service, built a business.
We got both worlds there.
Yeah, oversaw administration. Together we oversaw, worked together on the finance and accounting side, and worked with some incredible, people that have come into our lives. Again, same thing, that are still friends. They always say, get a good attorney. I'm very, very good friends and longtime friends with my attorney, and same thing with my accountant. I never call them that because I don't think of them as that, but that all started with ag flight. It all
Yeah.
started with ag flight, so we went from one helicopter, and I'll share this with you. In 5 years, we grew to a fleet, a total of 14 aircraft, not
Jeez.
just in crop dusting. We had a flight school, so about half those aircraft were, we had a couple years. We had a flight school, a coffee franchise, an ag chem franchise, and we did air ground, and we had a huge fleet of actually older vintage tractors, but where we did ground spraying,
Yeah.
peppered with a little bit of new stuff. So we went from basically 4 employees to 33 employees, at our kind of our peak. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and all that had to do with businesses that were going out of business, and we would kind of either pick up the accounts, pick up some of the equipment. So it's a lot of good things, and then I look at the missteps too, the things that we didn't necessarily advantage, some things we could have taken advantage of. But again, that's pretty explosive local growth, from
Yeah.
98 into the early 2000s. And then I would say the weaning years, it was almost like we were trying to downscale and try to almost divest certain parts because it was a little bit of too much.
Yeah.
And then the other thing about having a partner that's a decade older is he's in a different stage of life. He's looking
Sure.
at different things. John spent his whole life here, and will always be a part of him. But when his incredible father, that I certainly got to know and feel very blessed I did. And he made it into his 90s, I think it was 92.
Wow.
Stan, and Stan worked 53 years for the Wilson Company, RB Wilson
Jeez.
Company. So just a stalwart, and again, another person that was very influential in my life again, too. Learned a lot from watching him and listening to him. But that's a tough one, when I think about him. But John, I think he was ready to kind of make a big change and move. So the
Mm-hmm.
question for me was, do I want to stay in this business
Yeah.
by myself? And, as shocking as it is, and it was shocking to a lot of our customers, we decided to get out.
Yeah.
And, and a lot of people go, was it because it was going down? I could have made continue making a good living, right?
Yeah.
Doing, but I saw it as a high risk business. I saw it as a business that was kind of shrinking, and lo and behold, if you look today, it's a severely compressed industry, right?
Yeah.
It's a tough business, and we pivoted, and there's some overlap, and that's how I got involved in air ambulance, which never at the time did I think again that's what I would be doing full time. And so
Yeah.
you're noticing a theme here.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and I mean, I don't, I think kind of this pattern, and I mean, as you go through, as an entrepreneur, just something you're looking at opportunities, and you kind of, it's either you see those windows available, and then you make that decision to make those changes, or you ride it out too long, and maybe it's not what you're looking for, maybe it doesn't work out the way you hoped it did. So, yeah, the theme, I think the theme with you is you see those opportunities, and you're quick to take the opportunity as opposed to overanalyzing or maybe thinking beyond the time that you need to.
Justin, I'm laughing because that would be said by many of my confidants. That's
Yeah.
exactly I am. Yeah, and probably sometimes too quick. And but you know what? I can't. Once again, I'm going to say, how could I ever regret that?
Yeah.
It really is nothing ventured, nothing gained. But there is there's a calculus that goes with it. It's some people have slower and faster processors, right?
Yeah.
And to me, it's not only what you visualize, it's how you take that information in and how do you make it your own. And if you open yourself up that way, you'll find that inner battle that happens to all of us every day, right? You really learn how to kind of beat back that naysaying sort of negative dream snatch inside of our mind,
Yeah.
that's setting out to screw everything up in your life, and open yourself up to the side that actually wants to go out and do epic things.
It's I like that perspective on that. I really do, because it's true. I mean, some people, what's it, paralysis by analysis. Some people just do,
Yeah,
you're sitting there. And that's true. I mean, especially I think a lot of people, definitely when you're younger, it's hard to make those decisions because you don't know what the other side looks like, and you're unsure. So it's easier to sit there and really try to think it out. But having the ability to make quick decisions like that, and to write it out and say I'm good with it and we're gonna go with it is a desirable trait in my mind. That it's something that to be able to do that is not everyone can. So to this point where you're at, that seemed to have worked well for you, right? I mean, so you make the decision, you guys make the decision. So John's going to move on, and you go into the air ambulance side of things, and you also make that decision to go that route.
that's it. That was it. There was a little bit of a transition. So while we had the business still, I began moonlighting as a part-time air ambulance pilot.
Mhm.
Sounds like something fun to do.
Yeah.
And that's purely why I did it, just for fun. And yeah, a little extra dough, but
Yeah.
it really was about just flying a different machine, flying a different mission. And it's a different challenge, right? And something I've never done before. And there is no doubt, and I've said this every time, fell in love with that mission the same way I did with sort of ag aviation. This was sort of a transition into just a different way of, a different expression of aviation, I guess. But the whole idea that you can take somebody critically injured or ill, get them to where they need to go, and have these incredible, clinicians, critical care nurse and paramedic, highly skilled on board, working in a very confined space,
Yeah.
uh, keeping somebody alive and well from point A to B, and you're a critical part of that mission. How many of those do you need to do in your life to where you kind of, feel good about yourself,
Sure.
so I found it very gratifying, very, incredibly fulfilling. And I'll tell you what happened is, as I started kind of really going down that path, the service went away. So it literally, it wasn't making enough money or turning enough coin to stay in the valley. So it basically just, there went the program. And
Yeah.
so it left me thinking, well, wait a second. I wasn't thinking of myself. I was thinking, what about these 170,000, 80,000 people that live here? How
Yeah. What if something happens here? What are we supposed to do?
how do they get that cert? And now I knew a lot about the business. So I knew what that meant was you have to wait a long time to get transferred out,
Yeah.
and that it would cost lives. And so it really became for me about the community. It really did, of just saying, well, hell, I love doing this. But I just didn't know enough about the business to want to go, hey, let's do. So John and I did think about, kind of starting the band back up, so to speak,
Yeah.
and go to there. But it just seemed like a huge risk. So
Yeah.
there's a nay. Retrospect, damn it, we should have done it.
Yeah. So you were
Yeah.
working for who were you working for at the time?
I was working for a mom and pop. They were called Aero Medevacs. They were a
Okay.
little mom and pop, small, privately owned, tiny
Gotcha.
fleet, one helicopter. They had some airplanes, mainly out of San Diego, but they had an operation down here in Imperial County. So they
Okay.
yanked the helicopter, which meant if you get in an accident, there's nothing left there to fly you from the scene of the accident to a trauma.
Yeah.
So, and you're not going to wait an hour, right? And an airplane can't land on the highway or in the sand. So, that it really became a mission for me to help establish an air ambulance service here.
Yeah.
And that honestly is a fast forward of a very rewarding and interesting career to where I'm at today. I got involved in the business, and next thing you know, we brought another service down here that I went to work for. It was a little bit more of a partnership, a collaborative. So we rented the property to the operation we were working for.
Mm-hmm.
Did that off and on for a couple years. And but one thing you'll notice here is that the air ambulance services kept coming and going. So regardless of what business model it was, it just wasn't working. And what I learned was the business side at that point. And that's really what I had no idea at the time was setting me up for my next big career change. Instead of being an air ambulance pilot, I really crossed over and becoming really the business side, the business
Yeah.
development.
Yeah. So um, so you go from, I mean, how many years were you actually an air ambulance pilot?
Oh gosh, let's see. Including part-time, 4 or 5, 7. I was flying all the way up until maybe about 5 years ago, 4 years ago. So I don't know, it was a good 6, 7 year run. I probably, I think I counted, I've flown almost 1,000 air ambulance missions. So
Wow.
it was enough to know it. And I didn't just fly in Imperial County. I flew all over Southern California. So I flew out of San Diego, Anaheim, the high
Yeah.
desert, because we would rotate and pull shifts in other areas. So, got a lot of experience flying all throughout Southern California.
So you helped develop the business down here that actually is currently still servicing the Imperial Valley.
I helped Reach Air Medical start its very first Southern California operation back in 2008. And really, for all intents and purposes, still with the same company. We've just grown a lot since
Yeah.
then.
And
Yeah.
how many bases have you brought to Southern California? I mean,
At the
Big Bear, right?
It's another number. We started with the very first base here, so I can take a little credit for it because I did get the contracts for the hospitals in place. So in '08, helped them start with this one, and we opened another. I think we were up to 6 or 7 bases in Southern California. But what was great is each one is like a child. You care deeply about them.
Yeah.
I was a part of establishing each and every one of those bases. So, partnerships with, the likes of UCLA. We were, work up in the high desert, Big Bear, up in, at the time up in the, Riverside, Eastern Riverside area. And then San Diego, Oceanside, Viejas, the tribe there. So built up this great business. And then the company continued to kind of through merger and acquisition, grow and grow and grow. And now we've grown into the largest air and ground ambulance company in the world. We have, let's put it this way. When I started with Reach, I think it was like maybe about 1,000 employees, which is, that's a decent sized
Large company. Yeah.
We are now, across the country, close to 38,000 employees.
Wow.
And we cover just about all 50 states in some form or fashion, including Hawaii and Alaska, as well as a fleet of jets that do air ambulance work all throughout the world. So we actually serve 150 plus countries.
That's impressive. That's impressive. That's just a lot to take in, man. So at this point in time, so you totally switch you took off the took off the pilot helmet and went to put on that business cap, and so you totally you did a 180 on what your focus was and where you were going with this, right? Which is kind of, I think, pushed and led to where you are now and your role as you helped develop that. Now, were you hoping to continue to kind of work your way and develop your way up with those opportunities, or where was your mind at that time?
And again, I think there's some lessons here. It's interesting. Of course, like anybody, you have motivation, you have drive, you want to quote move up. But to me, it was all about just. We built such a great service here in Imperial County. My foundation always came back to here. So
Yeah.
regardless of building the business throughout, not just Southern California, but all throughout the Western US, it was always about coming back home here. It was, if you notice one theme here, I never moved away and could
Yeah.
have. I could have and should have maybe moved closer to an airport, so,
Sure.
or a good drive because I wasn't flying myself around the Western U.S. at this point. I was on the company's expense, right?
Yeah.
But it was always about coming back here and always making what we do here better. And I think we kept doing that. So to me, it was a lot about, I was pretty content, as far as where I was at. And what's missing part of, from the story, not to make a long story longer, just not forgetting all the while, I did become a volunteer with the Imperial County Sheriff's Office. So I got heavily involved in law enforcement as a volunteer. So much so, I spent so much time, my off time, not that I had any, doing not just patrolling, but I even spent a couple years with the SWAT team. Became a weapons instructor, firearms instructor. I used to go to competitions, for that type of thing, and combative shooting, pistol shooting, gun handling, empty hand tactics. I off and on throughout my life grew up, and from the time my mother put me in judo, so I've had martial arts sort of in and out of my life. Never a dedicated practitioner, but I was doing integrated martial arts before MMA was a thing, and it was more street fighting. It wasn't competitive, right? It was applied in that area. And I know my kids have, recollection of all that kind of stuff, growing up, being around the house. So I've always had these other endeavors where I volunteered my time, to the community, but doing things I love doing, learning new things. So, there's a whole 23 years of being in and around law enforcement that's also kind of a parallel track to this air ambulance. So the reason I'm sharing that with you is all of that came together when I put myself forward to become an elected official. It's like, well, why do you want to do that? Well, I learned a lot about EMS. I learned a lot about ambulance. I learned a lot about how municipalities and counties operate and work, right? Because all of our proposals and contracts were with counties and cities and municipalities. And I was deeply involved in things and matters of law enforcement and public safety. So it really was just kind of a natural progression, and that's another thing I got very passionate about. Once you're in, it's hard to get out. And I swore I'd do, maybe a term or something, and, try to do some good and then move on. And I'll tell you, it's hard. It gets in your blood a little bit, because a lot of it becomes, it's not a matter of me, it's a matter of the community. Like it's right now with the pandemic and probably the toughest of times, I don't want to be the guy that's running away from it. I want to be the guy that's running toward the issues and
definitely,
be part of the solution.
Yeah, that's amazing. You got something right now? There's still more there. So you also brought, you also were part of the charge to bring, you mentioned, kind of another helicopter service here, right? What was it for? The narcotics task force.
Yeah. That was a good 10-year run. I wish it was, still going, and kind of a discreet program. Wasn't very, it wasn't meant to be publicized, even though, pretty public. You can see a helicopter flying around, especially when it's shining a light or,
it's pretty obvious when it's out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I spent a number of years going back to the crop dusting days. As a matter of fact, interesting story. When I did start with the Sheriff's Department, it was with the Aero Squadron originally as a volunteer pilot. And I used my crop dusting helicopter at the time. I would take all the spray stuff off it and go out and fly search missions. And it was, the airplanes really couldn't do that very effectively or safely at night.
Yeah.
The crop dusting helicopter with all our lights, So I flew a couple of night missions, probably the only night missions, that the Sheriff's Department, at least in recent 30, 40, 50 years. But that I always had this vision of wanting to bring that service to Imperial County. And it took me 16 years until kind of the planets lined up. And what the task force is, what it sounds like what it is, it's all of our local agencies together have formed this standing task force to, kind of fight the war on drugs and, kind of work together collectively. So they ended up acquiring a helicopter, and I had the pleasure of being the chief pilot and helping that program since inception, and had about a 10-year run. So right now it's funding, financing, things like that. So it's a challenge to keep it going, but
sure.
I did that as well.
It's amazing. So we go through all that process, right, in that time frame, and then which I think kind of brings us now to the point of where you're at this point, right? Kind of your transition from through Reach into that next kind of that next transition, right? You've got your political side where city council for Brawley, but what about on the business side, and where are you at now in that point, and kind of how has that transition gone?
Well, I've got a tremendous position with now, kind of our national company, what is Reach here, and what you also know is AMR, ground ambulance.
Sure.
That whole thing coming together is known as Global Medical Response, GMR. So working with the GMR team nationally, you guys, I could just tell you, it's doing what I did here in Imperial County. I kid you not, but having the privilege to do that across the country. So
Yeah.
every community that's underserved like ours, that tend to be rural and far away from trauma centers, I work with a lot of experts and professionals on both air and ground side to bring it together, where we have air and ground, and serve those underserved communities. And I'm working across 80 markets right now that are very similar, to Imperial County. So I don't see myself doing anything else right now.
Yeah.
If there's, to me, the only thing I see is further opportunities, within GMR. And, I quite honestly, I mean this when I say there's days I feel I'm 25, that
Yeah.
this is what I'm in, this is where I'm going. And you know what, if there's another chapter, which I'm certain there will be, as my life has been, as your life is, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's
Yeah.
life is one chapter, it's you're always excited about what you're doing. And that's the key. It's not always longing for something out there in the future that may or may not be. It's really just enjoying the shit out of what you're doing at the moment,
Yes, sir.
and
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Because yeah, I mean, the byproducts of things will come. It's what, how does it drive you? How does it inspire you? I mean, what is it? How do you wake up in the morning and get after it every day? And speaking of that, I noticed you have this Iron Man shirt on over here. So I know you well. Obviously, your son does, but
All those medals in the background.
yeah, you got all that bling in the background right there. Yeah, so I know you've been getting after things for a few years now, and really kind of you know transformed yourself, which I'm sure obviously this part too, it just kind of it just drives everything else in your life. So give us a little bit about that those hobbies that and what you've done with those.
well, this is the go to show you guys that I don't care who you are, we're all the same, and I'm like anybody else, loving life, enjoying the standard American diet, especially here in Imperial County, the standard Imperial County diet, which consists of a lot of Johnnies, a lot of carne, a lot of, tea, and,
Yeah.
and really a lot of cervezas, and the weekends, and, maybe some of the nights too. But
Yep.
so I found myself sliding into middle age. What was kind of a little bit overweight into, I really got pretty overweight. And when I say pretty overweight, I'm going to say obese. And looking back, what's so funny about it is I think I was a classic example. I was pretty much, fat and happy, and
Yeah.
wasn't even really upset about it. That's the
Yeah.
scary part, But I somewhere in there, I was always, whether as being a coach, trying to be an example to the kids, thinking of my health. I would go through stints and go to the gym. So I was like everyone else. I'd go to the gym. That would, when I'd really get after it, maybe last a year. Then I would stop for a year. Then it would be
Yeah.
on and off. What I found is I'm in my mid 40s, and what was overweight, I really started to notice I'm starting to go through the size pants. I'm starting to go, I started seeing it in pictures where I'm going,
Sure.
oh, dude, wow, that's
And you
literally,
started really slow too.
yeah,
Right?
oh yeah,
You
yeah.
You were just walking on the treadmill to start.
Oh God, yeah. It was when I got to the third or fourth chin, I was like, yeah, I gotta do something. And it wasn't like because I was, because I was looking for a career in modeling or something.
Sure.
Like that. It was just, yeah, I think I better go to the gym kind of thing. And then, Susie was getting after it a little bit more than me, and
Mhm.
you know how that is, they get you, she was eating healthy and I was eating, not healthy.
No.
Um, and so February 6th, 2017, I walk into good old US Fitness. Jay Goyle, keep it going. Appreciate you know what you're doing. I go into the gym, which I'd been a member for 20 years, and I get on. It wasn't even really technically the treadmill. It was the elliptical, because the treadmill would have been a little bit tougher on my knees or whatever. I get on the elliptical. I do 10 minutes, and that pretty much worked up a full sweat. And then I went in and hoisted some weights. Don't ask me what I did. It probably wasn't much, and I walk out. Bear in mind, I had a back injury, used to get bedridden, there was no endurance left in me.
Yeah.
My sleep quality, I was staying up late, struggling to, even though when I wake up early, I always felt like crap, getting a
Yeah.
little more lethargic, spending weekends watching football. I don't know about you guys, but I can literally, I learned the art. I can sit in one spot and watch football end to end all day Saturday into Saturday night, watch replays, and then watch Sunday football, watch Monday night football, and,
Just
and,
keep it going.
and consuming the whole time. So I knew a lot about the game, but my body didn't look like,
Yeah, I feel it.
I could
Yeah.
do a whole lot. So when I went in the gym that day, you guys, I think I only missed 10 days that year. Something happened,
Yeah,
and
something
to
clicked.
this day, I can't say I went in there with a lofty goal. I didn't go
Yeah.
in there to become, an Ironman of any sort, or a long distance runner, or a Spartan racer, or any of that. I
Yeah.
just walked in to, like everybody, to shed a few pounds, maybe getting myself in better shape. I just got on a roll, to be honest with you. I just got on a roll. And then it was kind of like, then that journey, one thing after another started happening. And so, losing the first 5 pounds is the hardest, right? Then the next five, and the next five, and after a while, I'm thinking, man, I'm going to make it. So I started at 240 pounds. And, if you want me to fast forward to the journey in pretty short order, in the course of about a year and a half, within a year and a half, I got myself to my first, this race, matter of fact, Ironman 70.3. I want to be clear. That's not the full distance. That's the half distance, but I don't want to cut that in half. I don't want anyone to think that there's anything easy about that. There
Not
is
at all.
nothing easy about going 70 miles with your own body's, your own body as propulsion. All right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
biking and running any distance has its challenge. But I got myself ready within a year and a half, and I was on that start line at 165, lean,
No.
and so you could do the math. I mean, I lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Uh, that's what I would call maybe my ultimate race weight. I don't carry that normally, so I'm more off season and Spartan race. I got myself into 170s, 180 tops, depending on how much, muscle and how much lifting I, doing, which I've added a lot more strength training to what I do now. But you guys, I just got into it, and I got back in the pool just as cross training. I had no interest in thinking I was going to do a triathlon. When I did decide I'm going to do a triathlon, I went on Craigslist and bought my first bike for $200, and started riding a $200 aluminum Cannondale. I quickly outgrew that because I started getting faster. So then I went out and bought another used triathlon bike, and that triathlon bike really took me on a hell of a journey. I did a lot of cool things, including circumnavigating the Salton Sea, 118 miles on that bike. I've done rides in San Diego, long distance rides, my first century ride, anything over 100 miles, and ran several triathlons on that bike. Now it's my stationary bike. I have a whole nother one that's kind of my Ferrari. And that was the one I was going to run the full Ironman. That got basically canceled because of COVID. So I went out and did something pretty crazy in its place, which is the full Ironman distance, but right here in our own backyard in Imperial County.
So for individuals who don't know what a full Ironman is, please elaborate.
It is, yeah, and I've got to throw the caveats to all my friends that have crossed that finish line in the actual race. So, but what a full Ironman is in a race, you're swimming 2.4 miles, which is, let me put that in perspective. If you go to the Lion Center pool and go the short way, the 25 yard, like we all have, right? You have to go 160 laps. Okay. So that's
So just 160.
Just 160 laps. You know, maybe, I don't know, take the average person somewhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours, you know, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So swim that. Then you come out and you get on the bike, and that's where the fun begins.
Sounds like it.
You ride 112 miles. And now, if you go as fast as you can for 112 miles, you'll be so wrung out, you're pretty much done, right? So you kind of, you got to find that in between, right? So 112 miles, which would take most mortals somewhere between 6 to 8 hours. Okay. I know it's a big spread, you know, but so it's a full day of riding that bike. You get to where at some point when you get off it, you want to take it and throw it in the garbage because you're riding it. And then that's when the fun really begins, because then you run a full marathon after that, which you put all that together. The cutoff, the official cutoff by Ironman is 17 and a half hours. You have 17 and a half hours to do it. Yeah. So, you know, like I say to anybody, imagine doing anything for 17 and a half hours, you know, much less 16 or 15 or 10 or 12, you know, the world record is under 8 hours now, 7 hours and 50 minutes or 40.
That's insane. Yeah.
So, but what I did was that with incremental rest in between. I didn't do it exactly like in a race with a tracker on and, you know, because I didn't have aid stations. So there were a lot of benefits you don't have. So in some ways, I'm going to tell you, it was even a little bit more hardcore because it was just, there's no crowd, there's no cheering, there's no fellow athletes.
Just in your mind, you said you were going to do it.
And your body's screaming at you, honestly, the whole time saying, just go home and relax.
Yeah.
Just relax. You know, it really is a spiritual experience to push your body when you can get your mind into the area where it really does want to quit. And then it's a battle between your brain wanting to quit, your mind, and your body. And those two things are fighting the whole time. And somewhere in there is this new person that's able to hold both of those off and keep yourself going. And so, you know, here's what I say. Why on earth would you do that? People think you're nuts, right? But what I say, why wouldn't you try? Because if you can do that, what can't you do?
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No question about it. I mean, the fact that you ran, you swam 2.5 miles, biked 112 plus, and ran a full marathon all in one day is.
And I tried to run the marathon with you.
You had your sport team here with his
made it about 10 and a half miles, and I think I broke my foot. I couldn't walk for 2 weeks. So
this guy said I can't work the next day. So I think my foot's broken. I'm like, like your foot's fine.
Hunter, I'm going to say it again, because remember the audience listening here. That's epic. People can't just get off the couch and run 10 miles
and go bang out 10 quick miles. And and then he was on the shelf for a week, but he's still so
barely made it out.
How I mean, so you did this, and now well, I mean, you said you said it wasn't the same format, but I mean, how long did it take you?
It took me I think it ended up being the total day, okay, from the time I jumped in the water to the time I hit 26 miles, back in my driveway, was almost 18 hours.
So 18 hours, and you weren't going at it with the mindset of like, all right, I'm going to get this as fast as time. You're going to take those little bit of breaks, right? But you still did a full Ironman. I mean,
the breaks were not like, sitting on the couch. The breaks were literally like a pop-up chair and get up. And by the way, in the race, you can do that. You can stop at a rest station. A lot of people do. Athletes do. And they spend 5-10 minutes at the, aid station. So they can exactly that. My intention in the race is to not do that. So the purpose of this was for me to take advantage of what would have been my race, which I now I know I would do it, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Well, you accomplished it. I mean,
yeah,
at this
yeah,
point in time, you fully set out to do what, and you did
I know
what you
the
set out to
distance.
do.
Yeah, I know the distance. So this next year's prep. So I'm registered for that same race this next November. A month before that, the half distance. So I'm going to run add another half. I'm going to do 210 miles within 30 days of each other. I'm going to do the
Yeah,
70.3 and the 140.6. And you put that together, and that's going to be a pretty intense month.
good.
I'm also registered for the Ragnar race. I'm the team captain. I'm going to lead a team of 10 of us on a 200-mile foot race in April, unless COVID screws that up. And then I'll tell you guys another race is just the Big Bear Beast. That is an epic that I would say for 6 hours of grinding.
That's the Spartan race,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Spartan.
that is, you're putting your body through hell, you know,
Yeah.
for a period of time. So I can just tell you right now, um, they're all just little, you know, these are big challenges that started as little challenge that began with that 10-minute elliptical ride.
February 2017.
February 6, 2017, led to some incredible things, you
Led
know.
led to an Ironman, and obviously many more things
Yeah.
to come at this point in time. So you did the Ironman, that you finished your Ironman that day, and as I recall, the story going is that you decided you were going to keep running though after you finished your marathon.
No, what happened was, you know, I'd be completely remiss that in all of this triathlon journey, I've had a training partner, you know, buddy of mine, that is really a buddy of my kids that grew up with them. And
Uh-huh.
I say this: pick someone half your age to train with, and then it really puts into perspective being, for example, 52, and how you can push yourself,
Sure.
because you're trying to keep up with a rabbit, you know, for all intents and purposes, right?
Yeah.
And so it makes you better as an older athlete, I
Yeah.
guess. And, but we went into that day. So my, you know, Preston took on the challenge. It was, you know, really, he did a lot of the legwork and planning out the route and all that stuff. So when we got to a point where, and we said this, at any point, if we're done, we're done. It's good.
Yeah.
So if we swam 2.5 miles and biked 112, that's a hell of a day of training. We could
Insane.
have called
Yeah.
it good and say, okay, did that. Now we know what that feels like, right? You know, next step, you know, add them. So no, it's when about midway, you know, he was good at about the half marathon, you know, level, which is totally cool. And I thought about, yeah, that's it for me too, right? And I knew I just wanted to get a few more miles in. There was kind of that. So I moved my camp back here to this house instead of Preston's. And I thought that would for sure make me want to run those couple miles, come back, go, okay, I'm good. Now I can go to bed, right? Because I'm based out
Yeah.
of my. I couldn't stop that
Yeah.
night, and I think that was kind of the story that Hunter.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
referring to.
And I mean, just knowing you, I can't imagine you not finishing that. I just see that in your, if you set your mind to do it, you're going.
It was pretty brutal. I don't know. Yeah, and it's so easy to talk about versus doing.
Sure.
Uh, but I want to really approach that humbly, because I really mean it. I wanted to stop. You know, I wanted to
Yeah.
stop at that moment, and I wanted to stop several moments after that, several
Yeah.
times after that. But it really, and many will tell you this in the ultra marathon and you know, the kind of the long distance world. You start telling yourself, this is where the race begins. It didn't begin at 6:15 in the morning when we got into
Yeah.
lake. It didn't begin when we started, even though the whole time you keep telling it, this is where the race begins. When you start the marathon, this is where the race begins. When you get halfway through the marathon, this is where the race begins. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's understanding and wrestling with your mind and with that inner voice and with your body.
Sure.
I'll tell you guys the euphoria of the last mile.
Just knowing you're almost there. You're just that
It's like out of body experience. I'm not kidding.
floating.
It's just like why I was running that mile. It felt like I was sprinting, even though I
Yeah.
was, but it felt like it,
Yeah.
and suddenly you're done. And the next 24, 48 hours, you just have kind of that shit eating grin on your face, just that. I don't even need to talk about this. It's just like, what did I do? Wow. That was epic. And right here,
Yeah.
and kind of you just look around and go, you know what? Anybody can do this if they, wanted to, if they
Sure.
wanted to, do it.
So I can't let it. How long did it take your body to recover from that?
That's the other remarkable thing, you guys, because of all of this training, kind of the journey. And I know I didn't go into, the detail on that. Maybe that's a
Sure.
different show, but what I did do and what I've always worked toward, and something very key for older athletes. So this does not count you guys. I'm talking to my crowd. I'm talking to my crowd or above. And that's, your prehab and your rehab and your recovery is the most important thing, right? It's the only way you're going to live to fight another day, right? So I recovered remarkably quick. As a matter of fact, I did that, and that I think I took a few days off, and then I eased back into some more, kind of stretching, recovery, rolling, light lifting, because I didn't use a lot of upper body. So I was doing, I did my upper body workout, but staying off the legs, right? And then by the next weekend, I ran another kind of informal 5K and ran it pretty fast and rode my bike out to that event. So Preston and I rode out on Turkey Day. So actually that wasn't that much long. It was like 5 days later. We rode our bikes out to Westmoreland, and then we ran a 5K, and then we rode our bikes back. So you know what?
Quick buzz on out to Westmoreland on the bikes.
Yeah. I felt I'm amazed at the recovery, how fast. So literally it was just a matter of days, but you got to do the right things. And it has to do a lot of, I've put my body through enough where you put it through those, those paces, and then you recover, put it through the paces and recover, put it through you really teach your body to respond and recover. And so I want to be clear, that was probably some years of work that allowed me to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for everyone that a lot of people track their workouts with their watches now. How many calories did you burn again?
Oh yeah.
What'd your watch say? It was something crazy.
Yeah, and I've got two different. I've got a couple of different trackers. So I've always kind of questioned how accurate the Garmin actually is in sort of running. And I know there's some formulas to calculate that depending on what you're burning, heart rate, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But according to two different wearables, and if I were to take an average, I burnt like something ridiculous, like almost 14,000 calories that day.
And so, and then you went straight to Jack in the Box after the race, right?
Oh, you got to.
Yeah, I think it's like it's 3,500 calories per pound. So I lost weight sure that day.
Yeah, that's impressive. I commend you on that. There's nothing easy about any of that. Even preparing for that, there's nothing easy about that process. So, super unique experience, I'm sure, and I'm excited to hear about all the future endeavors. Got to get you on a run with David Goggins or something like that. Gotta do that one.
One of my idols.
Callous your mind.
One of my idols. Absolutely.
That's right. That's right, man. I'm not even going to put this on here, but that for the first time sitting here talking, that went insanely well, in my opinion, of right now. I don't know. We go look back and I'm going to get maybe something else, but you're obviously that was a great interview. You're obviously very interesting story on there.
I learned so much about you.
We said 30 minutes. We said 30 minutes. It was like 10:30 right now, and that was the most natural flow of the progression of that. I think overall, that was good.
You guys will you really can do something with this, man. I'm going to tell you that, like, this entire time was really, for me, was me watching you guys, you know, on the screen. I can see this, man.
Yeah.
Exactly what you got going right there, just right there.
This like if we can, if Hunter can relax and just we get, and that's just it, just doing this stuff. And that's why I was like, let's just do this. Let's do this, because you both know you very well. And it's like, I mean, I think right now with us and in this approach and doing this thing and leading to share stories like this right here, your story right there. And it doesn't have to be solely, you know, about the Imperial Valley or being from a small town, right? But it's about coming to this area and to creating something sustainable for yourself and your family and everything like that, right? And which is what you've been able to do. And it was obviously inspired your kids to go on and do great things in their life, and to, you know, which is what we want, right? I mean, that's all, like, and then to be able to come, and obviously my goal of my whole life has been able to try to bring something back here, just like what you said. As I was being here, I've always wanted to, how do I help give back to what, you know, help create me as well, right? Help grow myself up. And like this right here, being able to bring this is what I want, man. I mean, people to hear this story of your, you know, that time frame and all that part of your life, of all these little stops along the way, that it doesn't have to be this one smooth trend, you know, smooth from start to finish to the same thing. There can be stops along the way that change that path, but you know, it may go, your roadmap may look like this, but they can all be amazing stops along the way.
You know what? Most important, just tell cool stories, right?
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Right there. And that's why I like this, man. There's so many nuggets in this story of yours that I think is going to be really cool for, like, I don't want people to realize, like, what we all know is it doesn't matter where you're at. It just matters what you're doing. And you create the opportunities for yourself. Like, they're there. Are you going to go out and get those things? And that's what this can be. And that's what I love about this story right here. That's so cool, man. So cool.
You guys haven't no awesome night. I'm still gonna get my ass up early, and I'm going for a run, and then I've got my first call at 6 in the morning. So
oh, you early? Yeah, I got my 3:30 alarm set right now, so I'll be up too. I'm gonna get after Hunter.
Same here.
Yes, sir. Does Hunter tell you that I call him and go, "Did you work out this morning?"
Every morning.
All the time. And sometimes I can tell in his eyes he didn't, because he looks like he just woke up. So,
yes.
man, hey. Donnie, I appreciate it. I really do. Thanks for taking the time.
You guys are awesome, man. Let me know how it goes.
Yes,
take care. Bye.